Welcome back. If you're well, unless this is your first time, if you've been here before, welcome back to my video channel where I prattle on about things that some people care about and other people don't care about at all, and other people object to. And I'm fine either way. But I'm still doing the videos. They're maybe it's good for me to get it out of my system, just put it out into the world, and it'll give the fascist government that's taken over all the weapons that they need to arrest me for being against them. So whatever. So I'm going to continue the videos at least for now. But today I want to speaking of that fascist government. I want to talk about evil today. Um, things that are evil. Yeah, and by evil, I don't always mean as evil as defined by one specific religious book like the Bible or anything like that, but just things where people do something that hurts other people, and they do it for such a bad reason. I mean, they do it to I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping I'm not hoping I'm not evil when it comes to anything. So I don't know why they're doing it, but I wanted to talk about some things that I think are evil, and I'm going to start on a personal note with that. I've got a few different ones I want to talk about. The first I want to talk about is big pharma. I'm in this wheelchair because I was permanently injured by big pharma, GSK in particular, who manufactures the Shingrix vaccine. That's what paralyzed me. And the thing that's evil about them, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I could add on to it. Um, if you look at their disclaimers on the commercials, those disclaimers are there because if they say, hey, be warned that this could happen, that gives them a defense against liability. And then if they don't put it on there, they'll go, well, we didn't know about it, so that they feel is a defense against liability as well. So in either case, you're saying, if they hurt somebody, it's not their fault. But GSK, here's how evil they are. Um, the the drug that was created, Shingrix, uses an adjuvant that is kind of rare, and the United States government was helping them with that because they wanted to find a drug that would help fight malaria, and so they were being financed by the government to some respect on things, and then they started getting to the point where they saw that the same adjuvant was something that they could fight TB with, so tuberculosis. So this was something that was going to save 1.6 million people a year in Africa, and it was working. I mean, it was working in the tests, and the people that were in Africa, the physicians that were expecting us to come to them, were totally surprised when GSK all of a sudden turned around and went, we can't make any money on this in Africa, but we can use it for this virus, for this vaccine for shingles, where we could just make billions, in the United States. So they took it and just started doing that instead. And because they could make money in the United States, they allowed the people in Africa, who could have been saved by the vaccine, allow them all to die. Also, they could make more money. So then, when somebody like me, when I was, paralyzed by it, um, they they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to pay for my care. They don't want to pay for it. They haven't paid a nickel to me. I mean, I'm coming up on my 6-year anniversary of the last time I walked. I just hit the 6-year anniversary of when I had the shot, and it was just a few weeks later that I was unable to walk anymore. Um, and they don't care. I mean, they've been fighting my attorney forever. They admit it. And they actually changed their commercial, to say that muscle weakness, is a possible thing that could happen, as a result of Shingrix vaccine. If you want to call paralysis muscle weakness, okay, I guess. But imagine if the commercial said that you can get Guillain-Barré disease and or paralysis. If they put paralysis in their commercials, that's going to scare more people away from doing it. So instead, they called it muscle weakness. Great, good. Yeah, my muscles are weak. Yeah, but I can't walk. So anyway, so that's my first evil one. The next one I want to talk about for being evil is religions that attack other religions, and this has happened forever. We've always had the Romans were attacking based on their religion. It's all these religions say if another one disagrees with them, they just try to take over the government and force them to get into their religion, and nobody should ever die. Nobody should ever be killed in the name of a religion, no matter what religion you're in. You should not be killed. You should not be put to death. You should not be invaded. You should not be taken over. If you disagree on a religious thing, that's your own prerogative. Your religion is what it's between you and your God or your gods. Or no gods if you don't believe in gods. Whatever it is like that. But religions that attack other religions. My favorite bumper sticker, I think, ever is the one called coexist. And if you've ever seen the bumper sticker, they take different, like they would have, the T in coexist would be a cross. So they took symbols from different religions, and they put them together into that one bumper sticker. And I thought that was just an amazing bumper sticker, and I always loved it. I never got the bumper sticker myself because I wasn't a bumper sticker fan, for my own vehicle. But I think that's the way religion should be. All religion should be coexist. If they don't believe in your religion, that's fine. And for the ones that are really strong religion, where they say you'll go to hell if you don't believe in every single thing that we believe in. Frankly, hell might be a better place than being with these people, wherever their heaven is on things, and I can't believe that people in say, like a tribal area in Amazon that never would, never known anything about Christianity or something like that, they're all going to go to hell simply because they didn't know anything about Christianity. That just doesn't seem right to me. And, it just, religions, fine, have your religions. I think some religious things are really good where they support people and they help people and help people with their, with people needing money or food or things like that. So a lot of religions do good things. But if somebody's not going to agree with you on your religious beliefs, there's just no reason to attack them. So the next one on my list is I hate the NRA. I think they are evil. They are completely evil. All they want is money for their guns. That's all they want. And they took all these people out there and convinced them, Second Amendment, 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 Second Amendment. You have the right to do this. You know what? If our forefathers had known that there would be a gun that was able to shoot like 100 rounds in just a couple of seconds, believe me, there would have been laws. There would have been laws to protect us against that kind of violence and that kind of damage. So the NRA and that whole thing with Charlie Kirk, where he's saying it's necessary for some people to die. No, it should not be. We should be like New Zealand and Japan and even Israel. Places that have gun restrictions. To help protect their people. And then these same people, a lot of these same people, are the religious people. Why would these religious people be so much for the Second Amendment? When Jesus, you're Jesus, the Jesus that you keep telling us about, he would not want you out there with an assault rifle, attacking people. And no, he wouldn't want that. So you got to stop all that. So the NRA is, they're evil. They're totally evil. All they want is money. They don't care how many people die as a result to get it. They really don't care. And they make up crap like that. Good guy with a gun will stop with a bad guy with a gun. We're all these good guys stopping all these mass shootings. They're not. Good. There's no good guy, bad guy with a gun. Or arming teachers. It's no. You don't do that. Or you have to put up all these protections. To protect a school or a church or something like that. No. It's stop. Which brings me on to another thing that's evil. I think today's Republicans are evil. Even the ones that know that Trump is a joke. Like members of his own cabinet. They turn around and they change. You listen to some of them said horrible things about him just a couple years before he was elected, and now they're turning around and kissing his butt. It's just, and then the ones that are rhinos, the Romneys and the Pences now. I mean, those are the real Republicans, is who they are, and they're basically getting kicked out of the party and called names. Of course, that's the big thing that today's Republicans do, is their name calling. If somebody disagrees with them, oh, libtard, or rhino or whatever, just name calling. That's all they do. That's because they don't have facts to protect, to back up things that they're saying. And frankly, I'm starting to really, really question their intelligence. So it's either evil what they're doing, or it's lack of intelligence. Combination of two, don't know. The next one on my list, ICE. The people who are wearing masks and attacking people just because they have darker skin, and the masks, that's just evil. That shows that they know what they are. I mean, they're no better than the KKK. Except they're no better, but they're being backed by the government, which again, the government is pretty evil nowadays. The one that we have there currently now didn't used to be that way just a year ago, but now it is. The next one that's evil, the rich. They don't. I mean, do the rich people have they even go into the army? Do they ever serve in the army? I mean, Donald Trump and his bone spurs, and I think I talked about this. I had bone spurs, in my heel because of all the volleyball I was playing, and they had an insert that they were able to put in my shoe, and I was able to just jump just fine. So that bone spur, that was just crap. He got out of it because his daddy went over to a doctor and said, "Please get my little boy out of there, my little Donnie, make it so that he doesn't have to go to war and, oh my God, protect our government, protect our country. We don't want that because we're rich. We want the poor people to do that, not the rich people." So, I know a little bit about not being rich. When I graduated from college, there's a period of time my job was one where I didn't have access to a phone or anything. I was working as a waterfront director at a Camp Y, and I couldn't interview, during that whole summer. So when the summer was over and the job was finished, I had no job arranged, and I didn't really have a lot of money. And for the rest of this, for a while, I lived in my car, and I ate out of cans. I bathed in a lake. None of my friends or family even knew it. I didn't tell them, and this is actually the first time I'm admitting it somewhere. So you guys are the first ones to know about it. And here's what's weird is I was sending in applications for jobs. Again, internet didn't exist then, and I was using my mother's work address for them to come in. So I go to my mother's work so they didn't get back, and then I interviewed and everything, and I got a job, in finance, and for a while I still didn't have money for like the first couple of weeks till I got my first paycheck. So I was still living in my car while I was going to work in a suit. So I had suits were all hung in the back of my car. I had my bike on a bike rack on the back, and I slept in the car. I would sleep I'd stay in rest stops on the highway. And I remember a cop came over one time and said, "What are you doing there?" Fortunately I wasn't a nice guy and he didn't have a mask on. So I got out of it. So I know what it's like to not have money. I know what it's like to be, but I could have gone back to my mother's, and gone there, but I didn't get along with my father-in-law. And I probably could have, gone to a friend. Just my pride stopped me from doing it. I could have found somewhere to live, but if winter would have hit, I would have done it. I would have done something, but I got the job before that happened. So I ended up, never telling anybody till now. So that. But anyway, going back to the rich and their evilness. In 2012, Buffett, he made headlines when he said, "My secretary pays a higher tax rate than I do. She pays, she works as hard as I do, and she pays twice as much. And that's because taxes are just set up to benefit the wealthy. They don't pay, they don't take income, and a lot of times they accept their money by dividend income, interest income, and things like that, which are not taxable. So they're able to bring in all the money and not pay any taxes on it. And they've got plenty of money. They've got plenty of money. So, what does Trump do? He goes in there and, let's slash the taxes on the wealthy and give them even more. Well, no, that's just not right. I mean, Trump appointed 13 billionaires to government posts. 13 billionaires. What's that tell you about our government right now? This is a guy who bankrupted casino, and he's controlling our finances. He owned a fraudulent school, and then he's putting a rich person in charge of privates, trying to privatize our schools. This is a guy who mocked Obama for golfing, as much as Obama did, which is about 30 times a year, and Trump's, more than twice that. And, then the whole thing with the rich people and Epstein. We'll go back to Epstein. Pedophiles and the rich people who, I mean, these are evil. Anyone that's on the Epstein list, I don't care if they're a Democrat or a Republican, who they are, you're evil. If you're taking advantage of a young lady. And I wish I wasn't paralyzed and I could stand in a room with you and kick your ass, for doing this to young girls. I really wish I could do that. It's just, the right pretends like they care about it, the whole Pizzagate thing, when they thought it was the Clintons. And unfortunately, some of the people on the right are starting to, Marjorie Taylor Greene is actually saying, hey, come out with this Epstein stuff. Trump's on there. I believe he is. And that's why this is not coming out. He's a pedophile, and I think that there are so many rich people that are pedophiles. And, that's how Epstein got rich. I mean, he got pictures of them doing all these things. And then he got money out of them, to keep from releasing these pictures. I don't know. It's just evil. The rich are evil. They're totally, completely evil. And why we keep letting people make it easier for them to, say, okay, I talked about Social Security before, where there's a tax or there's a cap on Social Security income of $176,000. I think $176,000, where any dollar above $176,000 in income is exempt from Social Security tax. They should pay tax on every single nickel that they make. If you make $1 billion, there should be tax on all $1 billion, not just the first $176,000. And you don't hear Democrats or Republicans saying this. Look it up. The Social Security tax rate, and that is evidence of how the wealthy owns all of our politicians, both sides. And if you don't hear if they're not complaining about that, then they're cooperating in it. And that makes them evil too. So that's my thing today. I just wanted to vent about some evilness thing, especially since I'm being, tormented by it, and so are, the people needing health care, and the people that need SNAP benefits, and money being taken away from them, and then we're just going off and spending money on stupid stuff that the rich want. I don't get it. That's evil. So I just wanted to talk about the things that are evil, and those are, there's plenty of other evil things out there, but those are the ones that were on my list for today. So thank you for watching and listening. If you want to look at my book stuff, which has nothing to do with the evilness and everything. Although wait, now that Cheney has passed away, I will state Dick Cheney and George W. Bush did star in one of my books called Halliburton. And that's where they took over hell in their search for weapons of mass destruction. So in honor to Dick Cheney, I'm just going to point out that book is out there. So you want to read something wild and crazy, check out my website, www.normcowie.com. And thank you for all that. And if you're religious and you have a problem with the things that I said, look at other religions and try to respect them, please. Because they're making their choices based on what they believe, their faith, what they want. And don't make any assumptions about mine. I have not told you anything about mine. So you take care, all. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.